So let's talk about one of the most asked questions that I get on my channel. Do you need a master's degree to get into instructional design? And my answer is one of the most asked questions that I get on my channel. Do you need a master's degree to get into instructional design? And my answer is maybe. All I can talk about is my experience and how I got into the field, but everyone's path is different. Do you need a degree? Maybe not. Do I think it's helpful? It depends on the company that you're working for or their beliefs. So you might find a company where they're fine with like boots on the ground, someone who's very scrappy, someone who built themselves up, learned everything from the ground up by themselves. Or you might find a company who is very into education. They want you to have those years of experience with a formal, traditional learning background. And I've said this in one of my other videos. I think it also depends on the person. Do you trust yourself enough to learn something on your own every day if you do not have an assignment due for that thing, whatever it is? The answer for me is no. I think that having that formal education, it pushed me to having things due at a certain time, date, knowing that someone was counting on it and I had to do it. If I had to do it by myself, it'd probably be like these YouTube videos that I try to pump out ever so often, but I don't. So that was my reasoning for going, is honestly for that accountability. Very expensive, but that's why I did it. Let's talk about my specific journey and how I got into the field. This might be a little repetitive because I've said this on some of my other videos, but I got my bachelor's degree in early childhood education. So I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. That's something that I wanted to do for a very long time. When I graduated, I got a position as a site director for an after-school program at an elementary school. I loved that job. Then I got pregnant with my son, ended up staying home with him for a year. Briefly, while we were at home, I got a director position at a church. So I really enjoyed like those leadership type roles. However, working with kids every day, I found it very difficult to go back home and want to parent my own child after dealing with kids every day, honestly. So during the pandemic, I was able to land a role in human resources at an airline. That was really, really fun. It was at that job where I met a woman who had a very similar background with me as me. She used to teach as well, work in early childhood, and that's when she came across the world of learning and development. This was very insightful for me because I didn't really know about this field. Around the same time, I had a friend who had recently went through the same transition from teaching into instructional design. Unfortunately, 2020 happened. That job, I was not working that job anymore. We had recently moved to New York City and I jumped back into teaching because I needed money, honestly. It's what I could do. So I taught second grade for that year. And at that point, I knew that I could not go into another school year because I'm the type of person, if I start something, I want to give my all, I want to finish it. So I couldn't start another school year with the mindset of I'm going to quit halfway through. So my thought literally was, how was I going to break into instructional design? And like I mentioned before, that formal education is something that I honestly wanted. I think I remember it was late October, and the application for the program that I found was due like November 1st or something, which was on a Monday, and this was Friday. I was able to gather some referral letters. I did my application, wrote my application essay, and I was able to get into the program, which I then started January 2022. Shortly after, I was looking for an internship. I didn't even look on LinkedIn for this. I found it on Google. I think I typed in learning and development internship, and I found this job posting. I applied. It was for this Canadian company, and it was such a blessing to jump into such a good company, honestly. They had a lot of perks. When my son was younger, he broke my laptop. I was able to purchase a new laptop because of that company and a stipend that they give. I was really heavy into my YouTube videos that summer also, because that company helped me purchase a camera. So it was such a blessing, and it was more like positive signs after positive signs that, okay, this is something that I can do. And I was doing all this while still getting my degree. And fast forward, so that internship ended that summer. Fast forward to spring of 2023. It was January, so I was interviewing still. And I was able to land a job at this big company in New York City, and that was such a good experience. I was able to take the skills that I learned in my internship as well as my master's program and bring those to life at that company. We put on events, we launched a tech academy. I was able to be the administrator for their LMS system. I created lots of instructional design pieces, so job aids. We did a lot of curated playlists, but I had to make the objectives for those. So if I was curating a playlist on UX design, I'd have to vet that video program course, then come up with my own objectives for that course, build it, and put it in the design. If you've worked in an LMS system, you know what I'm talking about, but that was such a good experience for me. What else? And then after that, I had my daughter, which I mentioned this on this channel before. We moved back to Texas, and spring of last year, I landed the role that I'm in currently. This role has been the most different than any other role that I've had. It's challenging in ways that I haven't encountered before, but I think it's good. For example, this job, we designed to print. So all of the other companies that I've worked for, and even while getting my master's degree, we were designing for virtual scenarios, websites, LMS, etc. This is the first company where I have to think to myself, how is this going to show up on paper, which is very different for me. So although it's challenging, it's been a good challenge and something to put under my arsenal. So I also get to design more at this company. Lots more instructional design pieces. I'm still doing a lot of LMS administration. So there's tons of growth in learning and development. You don't have to stick just to instructional design. There are lots of different pockets that you can dive into. I say all that to say that was my experience, but you do not have to have a formal education to have any of these things happen, essentially. You can teach yourself how to make videos, make job aids, make infographics, make how-to guides, and create a portfolio for yourself. If you're someone who's very good at marketing your skills, you don't have to have a formal education for it. Like I said before, you know yourself and you know your limits, what you can do, and how you can sell yourself and position yourself. Even if you don't have a degree in, let's say, learning and development, instructional design, learning technologies, but you have a master's in something else, think of how you can pivot into the field using the assets that you already have. Have you trained anyone on your team? Have you created any how-to guides for anyone on your team? Have you created any systems and processes for your company? All those things are bits and pieces of instructional design. So formal education, you don't have to. It's a myth, but if it works for you, then do it. That's why I would recommend it, because it simply worked for me. Also, there are also some affordable learning tools. So LinkedIn Learning, you can pay for LinkedIn Premium. There are tons of videos on there that can teach you about the industry. You can follow a lot of big leaders in the industry. I did that for some time, and that helped me see what the job postings were, see what the language was. You can also, I think Skillshare is one that I used for a little while also. Delvin Peck, he has tons of information on his website. There's tons of knowledge that you can gather freely for yourself. Even my channel, learning how I got into the field and the tools that I'm sure there are other people on YouTube also, but there's tons of resources out there. If you are unsure how you are going to get into the field and what you want to do, comment below. We can talk about it. I can give you my advice. I feel like every person I've come across has a different story or a scenario. So leave it in the comment. Let me know what your exact situation is, and I can tell you how I would go about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.